I decided to leave my job and make a lot of changes in my life, I really wanted to figure out what actually gives me bliss from me. And that took me on a pretty much wild goose chase for a couple of years, where I sat with a pen and pencil and a flip chart in front of me, trying to figure out my bliss. And I didn't know what it was. And I remember I worked with so many coaches, and they were like, "You're taking things too serious, you're pushing it, just go and have fun." And I was like, I don't actually know how to have fun anymore. I was so focused.
Wow.
I thought if I wasn't working, if I wasn't doing something towards my business, towards finding my purpose, towards finding that bliss, towards, striving to achieve something, like, it's just, then I was wasting time. And that's when I had my burnout, which I talk a lot about, my energy burnout, because I was pushing so hard. And I got to the point where the more I pushed, firstly, the less results I saw, and there was literally no bliss in my life. And then by sitting on a couch, day after day, week after week, I've started getting some, I would call them creative ideas, however you like, but some inspiration, something started trickling through, and I was actually beginning to get excited. It was all of these things that were coming up for me. And what I've actually realized is that everything that I've accumulated over the years through being in a corporate world for so long as a consultant. I mean, I literally have traveled the world. I worked with some of the biggest names, consulting, presenting, training people. And then my spiritual journey over the last few years, all of the mentors, all of the coaches I worked, and somehow I knew I had to merge the two together, but I didn't know how. But that was a good start point for me. And then a bit of time went by, and I fell into, as you know, my big love, human design. And this is when I realized that I'm somehow here now, at least in this moment in time, to merge those two worlds. So the corporates, the spiritual, and the human design was like the bridge between them. And I just remember once I got this idea, firstly, it was absolutely crazy. It was absurd. It made no sense to me, because being in a corporate world for 15 years, I was like, who will even care? But I remember that sense of excitement. I was like, that's it. I think I got it. And, a few more months went by with me and a flip chart and a couch. And then as I was starting really getting clear on what is it that I wanted to do, the opportunities started coming in. And one of them was to speak at an event. So at first it was virtual events. And I remember my first virtual event, and I was so nervous. My throat went dry. I had buckets of water. My voice was just fluctuating like this. I was absolutely terrified. But the more it's like with everything, you've got to start building a muscle. Yeah. And my thing was on a flip chart, I did my visioning process where I literally write out everything I want to create. And then I summarize it. And then every day I would meditate on different kind of topics. And on the top one was to be on a live stage on a big corporate event. And then I'll never forget, it was last July. I was at Legoland with my kids, and this person, I was approached by one company to fly out to Berlin and speak at an event there. And I was completely shocked. It's like, oh my gosh, it's my manifestation is coming to fruition. And so to cut the long story short, I went to Berlin, and I remember just before getting on a stage, I was like, what on earth did I get myself into? Am I ready? Am I actually ready for this? Because there's so many people. I'm about to talk human design, spirituality, all of that. It's like, am I going to get crucified? And I walk into the stage, I actually wanted to run pretty much, but I got on the stage, and all of a sudden everything stopped. I was in this flow state. I can't remember much of the event, but I remember that bliss, what you're talking about, just being there, looking at the people, that energy, that energetic exchange between me and between the audience. And that just blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was the first time in my life, in my professional life, that I was in a state of bliss. And yeah, so that's basically how I found it. But it was a lot of unknown, a lot of void, a lot of sitting on the couch and pretty much doing nothing for me to really figure out what my bliss point is.
So the things actually stand out most from that for me, there's two things. So, and they kind of would be not what you would think in terms of how you would find your bliss. So the first one is actually not trying to find your bliss. It's literally just sitting back and kind of allowing things to kind of naturally come up to the surface to discover what it is you enjoy. And then actually in that moment of bliss, a lot of people would think that to find your bliss, it has to be energetic and exciting and all of this. But actually in that moment of bliss, it is like complete calm. It's a sense of peace. It's a sense of like, wow, I'm here. There's no like, involved in it. So it's quite an unusual, it goes against the grain, I think, for a lot of people to think, like you say, you have to push to find that bliss. You have to constantly be involved and trying and trying. And actually, it's just allowing that to kind of come to you more than anything. So I'm very intrigued on the human design element, because I don't think a lot of people know what human design is or what it's about. And you've done mine and that blew my mind. So what is human design?
Yeah, so human design, I mean, I call it like a profiling system. It's just for people who don't really know what it is. It's probably the easiest way for them to understand, but it measures our energy and how we're here to literally navigate through life and optimize our energy, because we know that energy is our highest currency. Without it, there is just no life. And when we have energy, we become more productive, we make better decisions, we communicate better, we have better relationship with people. We just thrive, really, you know. So that really helps us to understand how each individual is best to optimize their energy and thrive, because what will energize one person can completely drain another person. And then what happens, especially in workplaces, is where people trying to keep up with each other. It's like, oh, this person is working overtime. And I've done that so many times. It's like, they're here from 8 till 6:30. Okay, I'm going to stay here from 8 till 6:35. I'm going to pretend to look busy and I'm going to answer more emails and write more letters and do this. In the meantime, by like 12 o'clock, I'm done. I've got no energy and I'm pushing with something I don't even have. So we are not only unique on the physical, chemical, biological level, but also energetically, and trying to keep up with others or comparing ourselves to someone else is actually makes us go against our true nature. And that's what burns us out and slows us down. So human design then helps us to understand how energetically and genetically we're wired to optimize our energy, to make decisions that we actually trust, to communicate where our potentials, where our strengths lies, and so much more. It's a blend of quantum physics, genetics, and also some esoteric sciences.
Wow. So that actually makes perfect sense to have that in the corporate world. And even just on a personal level, I think people would learn masses from it. But when you're in a corporate environment, whether it's an office, whether it's a hair salon, you've got different people and different energies colliding all day long. So if you're going to get the best out of someone, you need to understand how they work more productively, obviously. So makes perfect sense. So I guess people should really investigate whatever company they're running, whatever size they're at, whether it's just 2 people or whether it's 200 people. Human design would be a massive improvement and boost to their company by far.
Exactly. Even just, you know, I mean, I was working with this one company and just even like making few tweaks, few suggestions, that was a whole game changer for them, because not all of us have this constant energy to do things. Some people, they're actually most productive when they work in short bursts of time, and then in between they would go for a walk or even take a nap or wash the dishes or something else. They just can't sustain their energy throughout. So if you, for example, put that person, let's say as a developer, you know, as a computer programmer, if you have to be on the laptop like from 8 till 5, that can actually burn them out and impact and diminish their productivity. Some people, for example, they're more focused and more productive when they only focus on one thing only. And that's me, like as a generator. So if let's say, if I was designing a workflow, because that's what I used to do, and then somebody would drag me into the meeting, and then somebody even invites me for lunch, and then somebody, and I'm like, my focus is gone. I just put it, I'm like,
mind blown.
I can't do, right? I can't do it. But then some people, and back then I wasn't aware of it, I'm like, how does this person can be in a meeting and writing like a project plan and coding? And I'm like, how is that possible? But for them, like as a manifesting generator, for example, doing one thing only would frustrate them. They literally need to multitask. You see, so when you begin then to understand how people operate, you can then allocate resources correctly that match people's strengths and energy. And I mean, that's how then teams start collaborating and being more productive rather than comparing themselves against each other.
So would you say it helped you and it has helped others by understanding themselves? It kind of helps people maybe come closer to finding their bliss point, having that recognition of understanding themselves better is an easier way of going, oh, I'm this kind of person, but I've been living this kind of life, when really I should be going down this route. And that can maybe steer them into something that gives them more bliss.
Yeah, I mean, self-awareness, right, is the key to finding our bliss, our purpose, our passion in life. And some people, I mean, I know some people who are just so lucky, they kind of fall into it, like they know what they want to do from small age. But majority of people I speak to a lot, they like can't still really find what is it that they want to do. And I remember speaking to someone recently and I said to her, do you love what you do? It's like, she's like, what do you mean? I've always done that. And that's fine. You know, and I mean, some people, maybe it's fine, but for those people who are really struggling, who are feeling stuck, who don't actually like, they just want to do something, change their lives, they want to try something new, but something is keeping them back, right? Whether it's the children or the age or not enough time, whatever, none of that is actually a problem. The only problem is that we don't invest time in ourselves. We somehow think it's a waste of time, invest time in ourselves. So we give our time happily to everybody else, but not to ourselves. But in order to really figure out what is it, who you are, what you want to do, what really makes you thrive, what gives you that sense of joy and excitement, we need to make ourselves a priority. We've got to give ourselves more time. We've got to pause. We've got to slow down. Maybe not for 2 years with a flip chart like what I did. But there needs to be, we need to break our habit. That's what I mean. We can't keep on doing the same thing we're doing every day and then expect a different outcome, right? I think it was like Einstein.
That's the insanity, isn't it?
Insanity. Yeah, but what I love about human design is like your shortcut. It gives you that shortcut because in human design, apart from looking at how you utilize your energy, how to make decisions, there's also more esoteric side to it where I can actually look at a human design and remind you. I don't even say tell you because you already know it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you anything new, but it's like, I knew this since I was a little kid. I sensed it. So it gives you this like confirmation, helps you to find verbiage for things that you just couldn't really express. So by looking at the human design, I can help people to remember, I guess, what the purpose and where their passion is.
Well, yeah, because I know you helped me massively. I went through a good couple of months of remembering exactly what it was, because I've been all my life in and out of jobs, not knowing what I was doing with my life, but I knew deep down that I wanted to be helping people, that I wanted to be sharing my voice, and whether that be healing. And I've been in various jobs that have been like that with, beauty therapy and dental nursing, but nothing really gelled. And being a florist for 10 years, I thought fixed that hole, and it actually didn't. And it wasn't obviously till fate brought us together, I guess, that those sort of things, and having the human design really just confirmed a lot of things for me. And I guess that's helped me now find my bliss point in similar kind of way to you. But I'm very intrigued in that moment of bliss, because I think some people miss it and they maybe mistake it for a different feeling. So when you were on that stage and you just had that moment, that feeling, what was it like?
It was like nothing in the world mattered. Like if I had any worries, any concerns, like I was present 100%. And I mean, I have a very active mind. Like literally, I've got to think about a million things. And that's why I meditate so much, not to even quieten my mind, but to really discern what is mine, what isn't, because I just got too many thoughts popping into my head. But at that time I had none. Like literally, like I was just there and the words just kept coming out. I felt like it was me, but it wasn't me. And then the second time, I remember I was speaking at an HR Tech in Denmark, and that was even more amazing, maybe because it was my second time. Like, I didn't even worry. There was, I don't know, like maybe 300-400 people in the room, and I got on the stage, and I still remember it was my birthday, so it was so special. And someone actually I met just shortly before getting on stage, she says, "Are you nervous?" I'm like, you know what, I'm not, like, at all. and that was just, yeah, again, the same thing happened, like no thoughts, no worries, no concern. It was just me 100% present in that moment. There was no future, there was no past, it was just now.
That
Present.
is a really, really key point of that, because I think a lot of people would think finding your bliss would be a moment of excitement or butterflies or anything, but actually, like you say, it's almost that utter stillness of just knowing this is where I'm meant to be right now. This is it, and it's just pure calm. Because going on stage in front of people, bloody intimidating. It's not for everyone. So to find yourself in that point where you're looking at a sea of people and feel completely calm, that speaks huge volumes about being in a state of bliss. It is the opposite of what you would think. Bliss, you would think, is like, yay, but it's not. It's just,
Yeah, and that's how I think, this is meant for you, right? Because we can find blisses at skiing down the mountains or jumping out of airplanes. That was another thing that used to excite me, but it's a very different bliss. I can't, like, this one, like, just comes from the inner stillness. Like it's ingrained in you, while this one is just something you're grabbing externally. So it's a very different feeling. And also that inner bliss, by the way, it's not something that you can sustain for long. So it will go down. So people say, I'm going to find my bliss and I'm going to stay in bliss. No, because to get there, it takes overcoming a lot of fears. Well, for me personally, and even like now, it's still doubt and fear. They still creep in. But, it's kind of like once you experience it once, you will know that you will experience it again. And that's what I think helps you to overcome all of the challenges, obstacles on the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think, like, people would assume that bliss, I suppose when you talk about meditation, and I do it as well, there's that bliss point where people just kind of think it's very zoned out, and we do try and get blissful things externally, but having that kind of inner knowing of this is it is such a crucial part. And I guess for a lot of people, it's those blocks of doubt and fear and change, and maybe they're thinking, what gives me bliss is actually to quit being a policeman and actually take up photography, or to stop doing what you're doing because that's the perceived correct route, as it were. And actually going against what your inner voice is telling you is just going to cause you anxiety and even more stress. So listening to that inner voice is probably going to take you quicker to where your bliss is. So how would you, if someone said to you, I have no idea what makes me happy, I have no idea what makes me blissful, or what brings me that sense of like calm that you get, how would you kind of steer them into finding their bliss?
I would say always, like, go back to your childhood, like when you were like really young, and try to remember what things excited you the most, because usually a lot of clues you find there. And then of course do human design, because I've had it so many times with myself, and that's how, for me, it was just life-changing event when I looked at my life purpose, when I looked at my spiritual purpose, what drives me, the obstacles to overcome, how I communicate, what my message is. I was like, I knew that when I was 5 years old. But of course,
Wow.
I just remember sitting, I was like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, oh my God. That validation was incredible. And actually, not strangely, but I guess actually in my corporate career, I was already living my purpose, because for me, it's all breaking the patterns of the past. And what I was doing is I was dismantling old processes and putting new processes together. So if you think about it, yes, it was. And now obviously combining, spirituality in a corporate, I can see how it just all kind of molds really well together. So yeah, so my first suggestion, go back to your childhood. Remember, like, what is it that you like? I was working once with a client, and I asked her to do some journaling, and she was so resistant to it. And we started going through certain questions as to why she was resisting it. And she remembered when she was little, her favorite thing was to write poetry and to write stories. And one
Oh,
day her dad came and he shouted at her because she wasn't doing her homework or something like that. And she put it aside and she said, I'm never writing again. And that's what, and then for 40 years, she
whoa.
literally didn't write anything. And I remember then we finished working, she says, I think I'm going to write a book, right? But it's all,
Wow.
yeah.
That's, I see, when you think about it, all the musicians and like celebrity actors and everything like that, they always say, you know, they knew from the moment they were little, they did the school play and they just had that feeling, that knowing inside them, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But obviously for hundreds of thousands of people out there, they don't become the next Ed Sheeran or the next, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow or
But
whoever
why
it
do
is.
you think it happens? Why?
Yeah,
Because people just give up, because it gets tough, it gets hard, it gets challenging. And that's why I think unless you've got connection to that high power, to your high mind, there's some kind of religious, spiritual prayer, whatever it is, on your own. I don't know. I don't know how it's possible.
no, yeah, it's, you need extra kind of and I think you've got to have quite a certain amount of resolve inside you to, like, say, that determination to go against the grain sometimes and just say, actually, this is what is my joy, this is what, you know, makes me happy, because other people around you, they don't have the same confidence or the same courage or the same knowing, and they're not following their dreams. So to listen to someone who's too scared to even have a go is
Yes.
just, that to me is insanity. To kind of look at something and go, well, it's a bit scary, or so and so said it wasn't a good
Yeah, or
idea.
just wait. For me, it was always like wait until the kid's older, you know.
Yeah, you always
Wait
put things
until
off.
like this, and I'm like, why would I wait until I also get older? Like, when is
Yeah,
it? It's never good enough. There's never time for it, you know. The time is now. Like, you want to go for it, and I mean, I quit my job. It was I went a bit, you know, full on. But people don't have to do it that way, you know.
yeah,
There is ways to kind of navigate it and to have both worlds, at least initially.
definitely. I mean, people thought wow, this is quite the ironic thing. People were telling me that I was crazy when I started my florist business 10 years ago, because I was actually in the middle of having a mental health crisis. So they actually thought I had lost the plot when I said, I'm going to start a business. But it was actually because of that moment of bliss I found doing the floristry, learning it and realizing, oh my God, this is it. This is what I want to do. This makes me happy. And then going off and doing it. And the funny thing I think I've heard more from people is they always say, wow, you're so brave. And you're thinking, no, I'm just doing what is natural to me and what makes me happy. You're the crazy one because you're sat there in a miserable job, in a miserable life, not even trying. It's, yeah, it's bonkers how people let their limiting beliefs or whatever is society is saying say, nah, you shouldn't do that. That's the one thing I think that both of us have a very passionate drive to say, no, no, no,
Yeah.
don't listen to that outside world. If it's in here, you go for it.
Yeah, because we're all about safety, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
safety is so important. So if it's something doesn't feel safe, it takes, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it was Dr. Joe, I think he said, only when the fear of being the same becomes bigger than the fear of the unknown, only then the real change is possible. Or it needs to be like
Mm.
some catastrophic events, you know. But for me, it was the fear of being the same. For me, it was the fear of going to the same job and doing the same thing and living in the same house and having every single day the same routine. And I mean, that for me, it got to the point where no amount of money, no amount of holidays, like nothing literally could make me happy. And that's when it just had to change.
Yeah, I think, yeah, because some people think it has to be a drastic change, like, I don't know, illness, divorce, losing your house. And it is scary to make a change and go and chase a dream. But the payoff, even if you're not like a multi-million pound selling artist, I've spoken to buskers on the street who just say, getting up on a Saturday, going into town and just singing for a couple of hours, even if I only make £30, it's that feeling I know I'm giving to other people. That is, I mean, that just speaks volumes, because you don't have to be out there being a millionaire. You don't have to be out there, you know, being a world famous actor or whatever, or a famous painter. It's the joy of doing it for yourself that
Mm.
then other people will resonate with. And that's how you find the people that are right for you. If you're listening to people that are too scared to chase their dream and find their bliss, you're really getting the wrong advice. So yeah,
I agree completely.
yeah,
Definitely.
it's a hard one, but I think what we're trying to tell people is there's an inner voice in you that if you're even for a second going, what am I doing with my life? Why am I doing this 9 to 5 when I want to be out there, teaching kids how to swim, or, working as a vet? It's not impossible to do it. And if it's feeling like it fills you up and it gives you joy and you radiate from it, you just got to go for it.
Yeah, acting on your passion is the key. And it
The
doesn't
famous
mean,
keyword.
yeah, I think Bashar says that.
Yeah,
Acting on a
passion
passion.
without a doubt.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think, 5 rules to live by. Yeah, because the thing is, let's say I'm not, I don't get excited by thinking about going on a sailing boat and going deep sea fishing. It's just not exciting. That's how it's not like part of my destiny. Right. So if something does not excite me, then I just let it go. But if something really like, it just makes like, I don't know, like for me, it's all in my gut. So my gut will tell me what it's meant for me or not. So if I feel that feeling, then it is definitely meant for me, because otherwise I wouldn't feel it. And even when you start taking small steps towards it, it's like the synchronicities, the opportunities that start happening. And the more you start then taking actions towards it, the more you will see that you're on the right path. It's like, you can't describe it, but you know what I mean. It's like the person who contacts you out of the blue that you haven't spoken in ages, or you receive this email, or you bump into someone, and it's just one thing will lead to another and to another. And that's what happens, with me. One thing I must say is that sometimes there's a lot of fears that's coming up, and that's kind of thing that can trip you back, can set you back, but it's just kind of pushing through, like feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And something just magical does occur on this journey.
Absolutely. And if you are open to it, I mean, as we know, we're so into the whole synchronicities and kind of letting universe steer you. It's unbelievable how many things have changed in the last couple of months for both of us, just by sitting back and going, all right, let's see what the universe is going to do for us now. Like you say, it's just one after the other. The amount of opportunities that have come in have just been like, where the hell did that come from? But it's a letting go, and it's kind of, like you say, being present and just not forcing anything. If you've got a goal, you just go, okay, well, I'm going to go and try that out and see what happens. And then before you know it, someone else will be like, oh, cool, I do this. Do you want to come and do this? And oh, here's this opportunity, come over here. And you just follow the path and see where it takes you. And it always takes you somewhere great.
Yeah. And you often, it often takes you often get to something never in a way you thought it would happen, right? So how many I'll set something is gonna like this, and I'll plan, and yeah, I will get there. But how I get there, that's like, it's like none of my business now. It's very seldom things work out the way I think they should. It's just, but they do work out, like always.
Yeah, it's like Abraham Hicks always says, it's fun along the way. And we don't, because we want that end result. If you're looking for something that makes you happy or to bring you bliss, you're there focused on, well, like that person or that job or that house or that place is going to give me the bliss I want. And actually, the bliss you sometimes find is on the journey to it. The actual success at the end of it, getting what you want, doesn't always fulfill you. It's maybe a moment in between where you went, oh my God, that time when I actually realized what I wanted to do, that's when I felt bliss. That moment when I spoke to someone and I was explaining why I love it so much, and I could feel that emotion in me, that was bliss. The actual going and doing the job of, looking after animals or whatever it is, it still brings me joy, but there was a moment along the way that I found that bliss. And
yeah, it's basically who you become as a person on this journey, because we often like beat ourselves up. I'm sometimes really good at doing that. Like I'm not there yet, but actually I look back even like a week ago and how much has changed for me, even if I can feel peaceful, for example, for half an hour longer that day, even if I can stay in a state of flow for 10 minutes longer, even if I don't know, I got clearer on my vision and I know what I need to do to get there. This is massive. And we don't really appreciate it enough. We just already want to have all of this. And I remember I was speaking to Bashar, well, Daryl Anka. Daryl Anka is he produced First Contact, many blockbusters, but he's also very spiritual. So I was lucky enough to speak to him once on in one of his sessions. And I asked him a question, and he looked at me, says, you have to redefine a meaning of success.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's all he said to me. And I was like, yes. Because, you know, being in a corporate world and always being this high achiever, for me, success would be like certain amount of money, certain house, certain this, that. But actually, is it really? And, you know, I really took his advice, and I'm like, for me, success is feeling peace, not being disturbed by external circumstances, always cultivating that peace and freedom within me, regardless of what's going on around me. That for me is the ultimate success.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of the times, I know people don't like hearing it, but it does mean you have got to cut out the crap in your life. And that can mean drastic changes, or it can mean just simple things, just decluttering your home, being more organized, learning how to not procrastinate, learning how to not listen to the wrong people. And if you've got people in your life that are steering you away from things that do bring you joy, then that is a clear sign more than anything to start saying, well, I need to remove that from my life if I'm ever going to get to that blissful state, because it's like walking around with a dark cloud over your head the whole time. You're never going to find your bliss if you're constantly looking backwards and looking over your shoulder and having people tell you what they believe. So yeah, a sense of peace. Oh, you can't put money on that.
You can't. It's priceless.
Amazing. Well, I have absolutely loved this, and I know people are going to take a lot from it. And I really hope that anybody who's kind of in that stuck phase, they might consider the human design element to maybe figure out where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, how they can navigate things and make changes in their life that are going to be really valuable. So if people wanted to get in touch with you and find out more about human design, or even just talk to you even on a spiritual level to see how they can either help their company or even just on a personal level, how can they get in touch with you?
Just on LinkedIn. Just connect with me on LinkedIn and drop me a message. Will be the easiest.
So LinkedIn, Lena Thompson, you will find her. You might even find her if you look under human design, but I will put some links in here, and you can also find us on LinkedIn as well, which is Lois Empowerment Coaching, and we have a YouTube channel as well. So if this has been inspiring, then really, I think if anything me and Lena can say, it's just go out there, follow your inner voice, follow what it's telling you. Don't be distracted by all the naysayers and the people that aren't prepared to go out there and chase your dream. Just go out there and do it. Awesome. Exactly. Thank you very much, Lena. Lovely to speak to you. And yeah, we will catch you all on the next podcast. Take care. Bye.